Welcome to Healthy Minds Talk, a podcast created to help you grow, bring awareness to mental health, and also remind you that it's not all in your head. There's hope, even when your brain tells you there isn't. I'm Praise Victor, and I remain your host on this show. Have you ever been in a situation where you're just really stressed, or maybe you're overwhelmed, and because of that, you start acting out? Now, you acting out might not even be because you're stressed. Maybe someone said something that hurt you, and instead of you to talk to them about it, you just react and let your emotions get the better part of you. Or have you been called oversensitive because you tend to react impulsively? Now, while I can only speak for myself at this point, and I'll just admit and come clean and say that yes, I have actually been called oversensitive so many times in my life that I can't even count. And yes, I actually do tend to react instead of respond when I'm really hurt or stressed or overwhelmed. And this happens not because I want to hurt the other person, or not because I want to make someone else feel what I'm feeling. I feel like that's cruel, but it actually majorly happens because I do not know how well to control my emotions. And that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in today's episode. In today's episode, I am going to be talking about the best ways to process your emotions and not let them control you, how to show up authentically in your relationships and respond in conversations instead of just reacting or snapping at the person that you're talking to. Now, before I continue into today's episode, I just want to come clean and say that when I record episodes, when I prepare for episodes on this podcast, and when I record them, even most of the topics that I talk about on this podcast are actually stuff that I'm dealing with in my own personal life. So I don't want to come as the host of this podcast and come looking like a professional, because I'm not. I'm also experiencing all these things that I'm talking about, and I'm sharing what I found out to be helpful. So I just wanted to say that. Now, back to today's episode. The process of you actually reacting in your conversations with people instead of responding is actually called emotional reactivity. And emotional reactivity occurs when your emotions get triggered by certain events that leave you feeling hurt or angry or defensive. Now, what are the signs that you are emotionally reactive? What are the signs that you tend to react instead of respond? Now, the first one is you get defensive in conversations that are similar to past ones. Now, when I say getting defensive to conversations that are similar to past ones, it might be you've probably had a conversation like this in the past with another person, and during that conversation you probably felt maybe you felt hurt, maybe you felt rejected, abandoned, unheard, and then you didn't talk about that with the person you were talking to in the past, and so you carry these same emotions to this conversation with a different person, and you just start reacting, you start getting defensive instead of really explaining what's going on your mind. And another sign that you're emotionally reactive is you have little or no control over your words and actions after getting triggered. Another sign is your mood suddenly changes as a response to external triggers. Maybe someone said something to you, or maybe you wanted to do something, you had it in your mind to do something before, and then someone now tells you to get up and go and do it, and now you're now feeling maybe you start feeling controlled, and so you just snap at the person and be yeah, I was going to do it before anyways, or you just say something rude to the person. That's a sign that you are actually emotionally reactive. And another sign is your reaction is not proportionate to the situation, and this is where overreaction comes in. For example, let's say you're having a conversation with someone on the phone, and then they say something you don't like. So instead of you talking to them about it, that okay, I'm not okay with I'm not okay with what you just said, you just snap at them and then hang up the phone, leaving the other party confused, what's going on? Did I say something wrong? Something like that. So these are actually the few signs that you are emotionally reactive. And why does emotional reactivity happen? I feel like this happens because of like unprocessed trauma, maybe from your childhood or your teenage years, or even in your adulthood. Maybe you've had conversations or events that have left you feeling bad about yourself, and you didn't talk about that with anybody. You did not talk about that with the person that left you feeling that way, and so you just carry that emotion with you. You carry all those emotions with you. And so when there are similar events that occur that bring up those emotions back, you tend to like react. You tend to like, you do it in a way to protect yourself, not because you actually want to hurt the other person, but you see it as a way to protect yourself from having that similar experience to what you had in the past. So basically, in my opinion, I feel like that's why emotional reactivity happens. So how do you stop being emotionally reactive? Now, the best way for one to stop being so reactive is actually to practice emotional regulation. And emotional regulation is not you trying to like suppress your emotions or get rid of your emotions, but it's just like you taking the steps to process your emotions and change the way you respond when you are feeling certain emotions. And how can you do this? The first thing I want you to do is to know your triggers. You don't just like start snapping at people out of the blues or just because you like feel like it. There obviously must have been something that brought about that action, and it might not even be something that your loved one did. Maybe they didn't do anything to warrant that kind of response from you. Maybe it was just like a terrible experience you had in the past that you suddenly remembered and now it's causing a mess in your present. So when something like this happens, be aware of how your mind and your body react to those memories. Just take a moment to be alone and reflect. Ask yourself, what am I currently feeling? Am I feeling angry? Am I feeling hurt, ashamed, guilty, or abandoned? Like, ask yourself, did you ever talk about how the past experience that you remember, did you ever talk about how that made you feel? And if you did talk about how that experience made you feel, who did you share it with? Did the person you shared it with, did the person make you feel validated? Did the person make you feel hurt? Did the person make you feel better? Or did the person just like shut you out and just made you feel worse for opening up? And just ask yourself that, what were you thinking when you had that memory? Like, what brought up that memory? What were you feeling? Like, what emotions came up when you remembered that particular event that happened in the past? Were you telling yourself that you were so stupid, or were you feeling really down and easily replaceable, rejected, not good enough? Did you feel belittled? Just try and reflect on your emotions and ask yourself these questions, because practicing this exercise every time you feel reactive helps you to be self-aware, and it also helps you to do the inner work yourself instead of projecting that on other people. Now, the second thing you can do to regulate your emotions is to listen actively. Now, listening actively is like you not adding meaning to what another person is saying. It's like you're not jumping into conclusions. You're not assuming that this is what this person means and this is like the intent that they have in their heart. Because when you're in your feelings, it's very, very possible to make false assumptions about what the other person is saying. For example, maybe someone is talking to you and they said, something like, I just didn't think you'd actually do that. And instead of understanding their perspective, you just react and say something like, oh, so I'm a bad person now, right? That kind of thing. So in situations like this, you just jump to conclusions and you like escalate the conversation. You just make the conversation more heated. And now you feeling hurt and maybe defensive in a conversation, when getting triggered in a conversation, is actually normal. But as these emotions come up, try to listen to what the other person is saying. The other person might not even understand how you feel immediately, but when you're like, they're done communicating how they feel with you, talk to them about how you felt concerning what they said, instead of like just cutting them off in the middle of their like statement and just like snapping at them. both you and the other person to feel heard and validated. And when you feel heard, your emotions naturally start to calm down. Just because you don't get the response that you are looking for doesn't mean that they didn't hear what you said. Say what you have to say because it needs to be said, and not because you're like expecting a specific response from the person. Another thing you can do to help yourself is to unplug and distress. Now, if your emotional reaction is as a result of you being tired or overwhelmed, before engaging in any conversation at all, I'll advise that you take a step back to unplug from social situations and just take a rest, or take a walk while listening to calming music, or scream out your frustrations in a pillow, write out your emotions in a journal, or just do what I love to do best, which is cry. Because I've like been in situations where it's not like I remembered something unpleasant, or it's not because someone said or did something awful to me that I reacted negatively, but it was because I was like really stressed. And at that point in time when I was stressed, I just saw having conversations as like additional stress and additional burden to what I was already feeling. So in situations like that, I found out that me reacting is like making the other person feel rejected, and like they don't feel like they're receiving the same energy that they're giving out. So and there's nothing good about that. It's not like something to be proud of. So I've decided that instead of like reacting, instead of making the person feel unwanted, just like the best thing to do is to unplug and go off. And when I go off, it's either I sleep or I cry or I listen to calming music, but most times I sleep off. So when I wake up and get back to the conversation, my mind is now clear and open to engage in meaningful conversations where I do not have to snap at the person or hang up the phone or do anything to make the person feel confused and unwanted. And this method is actually like really preferable if you're communicating virtually. But if it's like a physical conversation where you guys are like seeing face to face, then you can simply just tell the person that you need to be excused if they really want you to like be mindfully present and show up authentically in that conversation. So that is like one of the best ways to regulate your emotions. And the last one I'm going to be talking about today is to talk to a therapist. Obviously, you weren't expecting me to finish this whole episode without mentioning booking an appointment with a therapist, were you? Well, if you like find it difficult to practice the steps I've given, you can always contact a mental health professional to guide you in order to like regulate your emotions, because coaches and mental health professionals are well equipped with vast knowledge, and they also have the right tools to help you unlearn unhealthy habits, build better habits, and also process your emotions. So now I just want to say that the message of this episode is not for you to suppress your emotions, but for you to learn how to process them in order to avoid emotional outbursts in the nearest future. Thank you for listening to the very end of today's episode. If you haven't, please subscribe on the podcasting platform you're using to listen right now. And also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I'll put a link in the description. Happy New Month, and I will see you next Monday.